Hello. You might be wondering where I've been over the past 4 months. Well, I've been struggling with a crippling addiction to Benadryl. You see, in a disassociated state in which I may or may not have been seeing shadows dart across my room, I made the rather questionable decision to put my life savings into Neogen, a food safety company. This investment did not pan out. After this most recent financial blunder, I have fallen into a deep depression. Instead of going to cognitive behavioral therapy, like a normal, well-adjusted individual, I've opted for an alternative type of CBT. Peaks of Yore, or how I've been unironically calling it for ages, Peaks of Yore, is a game about climbing and resilience. From the player, after they've fallen for the 15th time on the same level, and the player's keyboard after being beaten for the 15th time in the past 10 minutes. I arrived at a rustic home bigger than any apartment in the city of Hong Kong. Just like my current room, this place will act as a base camp for my enduring suffering. Before I settle in, I must heed my urge to climb large rocks. I quickly found a rock which just so happens to house a local homeless man, who is currently busy jeering at my boy in the striped pajamas type physique. Enraged by such heckling, I rapidly scale said rock and claim the stamp at the top which asserts my dominance over this particular piece of geography. Once I return home, a local venture capitalist knocks on my door inquiring if I'd be interested in taking out any high-interest loans. I, however, cannot hear him over my 1999 version of King's Crossing I've been listening to on repeat since I arrived. After that pleasant conversation, I went to climb a slightly bigger rock. After returning home, a small child appears at my door and gives me a musical device my simple Gen Z mind unironically cannot seem to recall the name of. It does have some banger tracks on it though. Eventually, the voice in my head returns, demanding I scale yet another rock. This time though, I choose to rebel against it by climbing a windmill instead. I do not understand how I'm doing this, but eventually I reach the top. However, upon doing so, the voices demand I must break my kneecaps in retribution for my betrayal. It's multiple hours before I regain consciousness, but when I do, the homeless man from earlier is there to greet me. He starts ranting about a hat in the tree which simply doesn't exist and then randomly screams in my face. Noting this as a drastic escalation in our relationship, I book it out of there. After this, I receive a parcel from that venture capitalist who, upon I must have left a pretty bad impression, as inside the parcel is rope, nails, and a hammer, presumably so I can make a noose and end myself. However, as much as I may want to, I have no time, as more peaks must be climbed. I proceeded to go to and conquer the Great Goalie, which just might be the most forgettable level in this entire game. The next peak though, a decrepit lighthouse that may or may not be on private property, is my first major challenge. I remember this lighthouse as particularly challenging when I played this game a few years ago, so upon walking up, I, as the kids say, locked in. Unfortunately, I was perhaps too fixated on clutching up, as when it came time for my first jump hold, I managed to accidentally launch myself about 10 feet over my target, and only survived by clutching a random brick. This mistake was so disorienting I proceeded to climb the opposite direction I needed to go, in an instance of stupidity that astonished even myself. Oh my god, did I go back? I'm so stupid. After this, and totally only this mishap, I finished the lighthouse level without much incident. That was when I came across this little fucker. This bird is named Jorge. Jorge is a complete fucking dickhead, and not just because he's wanted internationally for war crimes in Bosnia. His one distinct mission in life is to ruin your day, and he takes said mission very seriously. We will be seeing Jorge again. After coming across Jorge in the last climb, I decided that I simply could not let such a disgusting Serbian sympathizer live on the same continent as me. It's for this reason I attacked the problem head-on, at the Old Man of Seagulls, where Jorge and his harem of e-goals have been living in an effort to avoid paying taxes. This level's supposed to be semi-difficult, but I am a true gamer, and as such, after completing PETA levels of animal cruelty, I completed the level. On top of the rock was that homeless man from earlier, who seemed to be going through another psychotic episode, harassing me for falling and using ropes, neither of which I had done at any point during this climb. This, however, did inspire me to finish the rest of the fundamental levels without ropes or any other type of assistance. Except crampons. I love crampons. My first real test would be this overpass, which showed me the consequences of using colorless mode, as I cannot see the holds for shit. However, this is a sacrifice I'm willing to make for that glorious Victorian aesthetic. It was quite stressful, but again, I was able to complete the level without suffering a bad fall. Afterwards, upon returning to the cabin while I was busy cleaning my shoes with a toothbrush, a letter from my landlord arrived saying I owed rent and was about to be evicted. I, however, suffered critical damage to my brain's Wernicke's area during that fall at the windmill earlier, so I was unable to understand what such phrases meant. Tough luck, I guess. Next was Evergreen's End, which is packed full of foliage and branches along the route. Upon seeing this war crime against biological understanding, I decided to leave a negative review on Steam pleading with the devs to please retake middle school biology. Once I was done with that, I began my ascent. My no ropes challenge met its first match when I came across this branch which was covered in Vaseline. Typically, I would just use a rope in order to clear it, but due to my newfound fragile masculinity, that simply isn't an option. However, through the use of subpar editing, I was able to make the jump in one go. This was the only really alarming part of this level, I promise. After a short visit from my landlord who yelled at me about police and the jails nobody wants to talk about, I began the next route. After robbing these gentlemen at knife point for their coffee, I began the route, which is where I came across my first crux. From this point on, each level will have a crux, or in other words, a highly difficult section, usually marked by these nails. This is the game literally telling you to use a rope, but mama didn't raise no pussy. Instead, she raised someone that gets no pussy. As such, I completed the crux in one go. Twin Peaks complete. We are now halfway through the fundamentals, but I promise it will only get harder from here. Old Grove Shelf is a relatively easy route, and I thought I'd finish it without issue. However, Hjorge, furious and sexually frustrated after the dispersal of his harem, has a newfound bloodlust in his eyes not seen since that one time at the Bosnian village. This motherfucker would not leave me alone, and even caused me to fall on a few occasions. At this point, I was quite angry myself, and promptly made a point to beat the shit out of him in order to establish a sense of primal superiority. With this achieved, the route was quite easy. However, the next route would be my first real test of mental endurance. Hangman's Leap quite literally has rope required in its description, and I was about to find out why. You know it's bad when you need a rope to even begin the route. You see, the first real hold is blocked by this big ass rock, meaning that you can't easily jump down onto it. With a rope, clearing this is no problem, but I have no rope. As I have the frontal lobe capacity of a mole rat, my planning simply consisted of throwing myself off a cliff until something happened. After about 15 minutes of this, something did actually happen. I then fell. After another 15 minutes, I got another opportunity to try and finish the level. At this point, I was rather frustrated and determined not to fuck up. This particular level consists of many large leaps with no room for error, but a deep ADHD-fueled rage was triggered by the monotony of the last half hour, and that was no match for such leaps. However, this one specific crux really made me think this run was over. I couldn't see shit and had no idea where I need to fling myself next to complete the level. I started wiggling back and forth as if I had Parkinson's and was also on meth. Such an effort that eventually resulted in me catching a far-off glimpse of hope, a few holds a while down the course. Without any other real options, I threw myself at said holds and somehow managed to not die. Here, I met a woman who seems to be the homeless man's daughter. Don't ask me the logistics of how this man managed to get laid. I have no idea. However, Psychosis seems to run in the family as she complimented me on my rope usage. I didn't respond as I was still in an adrenaline-fueled delirium solely focused on finishing this god-forsaken level. Thank God. Next was the first very difficult level I had to conquer. The level looked intimidating, but after that last level I had nerves of steel, and as such I was able to complete the first section relatively easily. However, my nerves of steel cracked when I saw the crux. I cannot explain how hard my butthole tightened when I saw crux, temperance, and 30 seagulls all eyeing me with lust. Eventually, I got my shit together and managed to complete the first section, which seemed to encourage a complete leap of faith in order to avoid Seagull gang initiation. I eventually just YOLO'd it, and by some miracle of God, my hand just so happened to find a crimp, allowing me to continue my journey. For the next few parts on the level, my heart rate transformed into a biotech penny stock as I desperately tried not to shit the bed, which I nearly did multiple times. Leap after leap was made, and somehow I just about managed to finish the level without dying even once. Next was Old Lagger, basically a supersized climbing wall from your childhood. This level features a few normal holds and then these weird wrinkly balls that seem to contract upon you firmly grasping them. Due to this, pretty much every hold is a single-use crimp, and knowing me and crimps, this guaranteed some hairy moments. Despite it all, I also completed this one on my first try. My heart rate will never recover. Now for the next one. Imagine the levels I just beat, but you're also legally blind, and there's bats. I fell literally the third hold in, so, things weren't looking good right off the bat. Please don't click off. Anyway, after making the decision to take it slower, I was making steady progress, although with the same sketchy moments. Smooth progress was being made until I was 3 holds away from finishing. I don't know if there is a god, but if there is one, he certainly was on my side. Another one complete. The 3 brothers were the second very difficult I was to face. This climb was very much a choose-your-own-adventure type excursion, with multiple paths to the top. I chose the easier but longer path initially, and was making good progress, and of course getting extremely lucky along the way. After a temporary cameo from Hyorge, I transitioned from the second to third brother whose shaft seemed to be girthier and taller than the others. I was on the downward descent part when I, in an episode of Pure Ego, decided to try and take a leap of faith for the bottom hold to skip the section. This did not work. The second time around, I took the harder but faster way with the first brother. This allowed me to get to Hyorge quicker, and that also means getting to the third brother quicker. When I finally reached the top, I was actually happy to see the homeless man there to greet me. As a reward for my determination, he gave me a crack pipe he found in an alleyway. We now have 5 levels left in fundamentals, and from here on out, they will all be rock hard. First up is Walter's Crag. I tried the easier way at first, but that route was filled with these rocks covered in lubricant or something that I seemed to really struggle with. Luckily, the homeless man showed me a more challenging route, which I frankly found way easier due to the absence of said lubricated rocks. Honestly, I have no idea how this is a very difficult level, as beating it only took me a few minutes. The next level was Great Crevasse, insert maternal theme joke here. One thing I'm noticing throughout these levels is that even though I am 1 or 2 shotting them, it's always off the back of a few miracle moments. Divine intervention aside, I did complete this level fairly easily. From here on out, every single level is rated very severe. It was here I would begin to regret my no rope decision earlier. Remember how I was complaining about those lubricant covered rocks earlier? Well, imagine if every rock on the entire level was like that. Welcome to Old Haggard, which we must climb during a blizzard. You know it's bad when even the schizophrenic homeless man is advising you to turn around. However, with determination in my heart and methamphetamine in my veins, I chose to climb anyway. This was a mistake. After my successes in the past few levels, I was feeling very confident in my ability to perhaps even one-shot this one. After 10 minutes, that confidence was already shattered. Fall after fall, the pain was building. However, after a few clutch and totally skill-based moments, I started to make progress. When I thought I was about halfway up the mountain, I just randomly reached the top. Honestly, I thought I was in for quite a long torture session, but after only half an hour, I managed to conquer the first severe. Welcome to Purgatory. This level would be fairly simple if it wasn't for the rocks that are falling at a constant pace. If you ever want to get better at bottoming, this is the mountain for you, as this level will mercifully fuck you in the ass. After dying again and again, even my ability to climb began to be greatly affected. I simply could not get past this first part. Eventually, in one clean run, I was able to get past it, but the struggles were far from over. Without a rope, this crux is brutal, all the while being at risk of getting pounded by Dwayne The Rock Johnson at any point. However, I came prepared. You see, I was in central Ohio a few days ago, and I stole a goat from a nearby farm just for this occasion. After sacrificing said goat to Charles de Gaulle, the one true god, I was blessed with extreme divine favor, which led to me both completing the crux and finishing the mountain all on this run. Great success. Now for the final level. However, after the digitalized CBT session that just took place over the past hour, I really needed a break. So I played Siege for a bit, and naturally got my ass handed to me. Reinvigorated, I returned to Peaks of Yore. I remembered all my training, all my struggles, and all the people I had met along the way. I was ready. I began climbing, and I quickly ran into the funniest Gen Xer. He started making pun after pun, and the climb quickly went from trying to summit to trying to get out of audio range of this little shit. It is this that fueled me until I was about halfway up the mountain, upon which I came across this jump. When I YOLO'd it, I did fall, but I was saved by some random crimp my character managed to grab due to his bulging forearms. Come to think of it, I've been saved by random crimps quite a lot. Whatever the case, I summoned the mountain in one attempt without ropes, chalk, or coffee. This was a decently fun challenge for myself, and hey, if this video does decent, I might as well make it a absolutely miserable challenge for myself by doing Volume 3 with no help. Anyway,